Alright, what's going on YouTube? This is Keith with Less Magic, More Gathering, and we are back for day 2 of our arena deck Infusion. Infusion? Yeah, sounds good. So we're going to import a new deck here, and we are going to call this, let's see, Artifact Nonsensicalness, because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it's a fun deck. So what's this deck based on? Probably kind of Traxos. Alright, so we're going to be making a lot of artifacts. We're going to be using a lot of artifacts to cast some of these bigger spells. We're going to use some artifacts to untap Traxos. We've got some board wipes in here that's going to hopefully just absolutely wreck our opponents. Lots of good card advantage. Let's take a look. So at the beginning of the curve here, down on the bottom, we've got Sage of Latnam. 2-drop 1/2 that you can tap, sacrifice an artifact, and draw a card. So we're going to be creating some treasures here. So this is gonna, he kind of turns into a like a flipped over treasure map. That's a body as well, which kind of sucks, I guess, because they can kill it, but it does let you repeatedly draw cards, so that's a good advantage. And it's on a 1/2 body, so sometimes it can be an okay blocker in the early game for those aggro decks. We've also got 4 copies of Voltaic Servant. This is a 2-drop 1/3 that lets you untap an artifact at the beginning of your, the beginning of your end step. So it'll untap our Encyclopedia when we get there. It'll untap Traxos. It'll untap itself if it's really early and you've swung with it. It's almost like it's got Vigilance, so it's pretty handy. Works pretty well. Next, we've got 3 copies of Psi Master Thopterist. This is going to help us trigger Traxos to untap, and it's also going to give us some artifacts out there that we can sacrifice to him to draw a card, or to the Sage of Latnam to draw a card, or to use as a blocker if we're up against an aggro type build. So Psi works pretty well. I like him, especially in this deck, because he can pump out a lot of Thopters, because we've, as far as our historic spells are concerned, oh, I guess it's artifact spell on him, but we've still got plenty. We've got Voltaic Servant, Golden Guardian, Traxos, and the Arcane Encyclopedia, so we can definitely create some Thopters with him. Next, we've got 3 copies of Arcane Encyclopedia. It's a 3-drop, pay 3, tap, and draw a card. Nice thing about this is if you're drawing dead or you're flooding, you can use this in combination with the Voltaic Servant to draw a couple cards every turn, and it can be sacrificed. If you just don't need it anymore, you can sacrifice it. It's also going to help us pump up some of our other creatures and things, so works pretty well. Everything in this deck works really well together. Next, we've got Golden Guardian. 2 copies of Golden Guardian. It's a 4-drop 4/4 with Defender, and then you can pay 2, have it fight another creature you control, and then when it dies, you return it to the battlefield as the Gold Forge Garrison, which is a land, makes it so you can pay 4 and tap it to create a 4/4 Golem artifact creature token. So it's similar to Adanto, the Last Fort, only instead of a 1/1 with lifelink, you pay 1 extra and you create a 4/4 Golem artifact. So you get a lot bigger creature. You do lose the lifelink, but I think it's worth it to get a lot bigger creature. And if you start to flood the board with these, it can be really hard for your opponents to catch up. And really, all you've got to do is have your Guardian fight Traxos, or fight a Construct, and you can also make it so that your Guardian fights a Thopter if you want, and then block with it in combat. The fighting ability doesn't have to kill the Golden Guardian for it to trigger that ability. So if you're in combat and you block something with it, and then you can pay the 2, have it fight a Thopter or anything else, even if your fight ability doesn't kill it, it'll still flip, and you can start pumping out those golems. I already said Traxos. We got 4 copies of Traxos. Pretty good. 7/7 with Trample. It doesn't untap during your untap step, but whenever you cast a historic spell, it untaps. So, Psy, the Encyclopedia, the Voltaic Servant, Phyrexian Scriptures, Karn, Golden Guardian, Tezzeret, all those are going to untap Traxos. So we've got lots of things that we can use to trigger the untap ability on Traxos. And then also, if we don't have something to cast, but we've got a Voltaic Servant on the board, that'll untap him too. Next, we've got 4 copies of Phyrexian Scriptures. I really like this, especially up against some of the Golgari builds. This is really nice. When you first play it, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, and it becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. So if you've got a Psy or a Sage out there, you put a counter on them, and they become an artifact, so that on the second trigger, the destroy all non-artifact creatures, you don't lose one of those creatures. So this is going to pretty much board wipe our opponent for the most part, and let us keep all of our artifact creatures and whatever creature we've put a counter on to make it an artifact as well. And then on the third trigger, this is really why I like it against the Golgari builds, or anything that is trying to use its graveyard. Zombies is a good one too. Exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. So if they're trying to use Undergrowth, or they're trying to use the Golgari Finebroker to bring things back, you exile everything from the graveyard. It's really nice. It's nice. Next, we've got, how many copies of Karn? We just got 1 copy of Karn. Karn, Sign of Urza. It's going to let us, get through our deck a little bit faster, and also with the Thopters and the treasures and all of our regular artifacts that we've got, we can pump out some really big Karnstructs as well. So we did go ahead and put a copy of Karn in there. Next, we've got 3 copies of Deadeye Plunderers. It gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So as you can see, we're working with artifacts here. So it's going to be a big creature, and then you can also pay 4 to create a treasure, which is going to make it that much bigger. It also gives us things to sacrifice with the Sage or Psy. Does Psy say it has to be? It doesn't have to be a Thopter, right? Yeah. Artifact. So if you've got one of those out there, you can use that to draw into cards. It's also going to work good with our Tezzerets. Both of the Tezzerets. They've both got good abilities that you can target those treasures with. The first Tezzeret is going to, if you've got 3 or more artifacts, so if you've got 2 treasures and a creature on the board, an artifact creature on the board, it's going to let you draw extra cards. The +1, you create an artifact creature token, a Thopter. The 0, you draw a card, but if you've got 3 or more artifacts, you draw 2 cards, and you can -9. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So his ultimate is probably not game breaking. It's not going to end the game, but it's really good because it lets you search out, if you're missing pieces, it lets you search those out so that you can hopefully finish the game. So it doesn't finish its game itself the way some of the other ultimates do, but it'll get you a lot closer. It lets you hunt things down that you really want. Next, we've got Contract Killing. I know it's sorcery speed, and I know it costs 5 mana to play, but we get a lot of good benefit out of this. We get to destroy a creature, and then we create 2 treasure tokens. So, yes, it costs 5. We get 2 treasures back, so really it costs 3. But then, like I said, that's going to work with everything else in our deck to hopefully make bigger creatures, give us something to sacrifice if we need to draw cards, give us a target for Tezzeret to turn something into a 5/5. That'd be pretty cool. So we went with Contract Killing to keep the budget low and also, give us some benefit. We could have went with Murder, could have went with Cast Down, could have went with Vraska's Contempt. There's other options, but this one giving us those 2 treasure tokens back, I like it a lot. And finally, we've got 1 copy of Tezzeret Cruel Machinist. This is the one from the Planeswalker deck. Its +1 is draw a card. Its 0 is until your next turn, an artifact you control becomes a 5/5 creature in addition to its other types. So if you use that 0 ability on a Thopter, then that becomes a 5/5 flying creature. So that's a good target for that. It's also, your treasures can be a good target for that too. You can make creatures out of nothing. And then the -7 is a weird one. Put any number of cards from your hand onto the battlefield face down. They are 5/5 artifact creatures. So if you're using the Sage and Sai and Tezzeret and the other Tezzeret and Karn to draw all these extra cards, you may have a huge hand full of cards that you're not able to use, or you're not able to use all of them right now, so you just dump them onto the field as 5/5s. And that can sometimes help you stabilize and then be able to finish the game. So that's nice. The land base, we went pretty basic. We went pretty basic on all the lands for these quick deck techs, just so that we could make it as easy as possible for us to get these out to you. Now you could go in here and add in some reliquary towers, some detection towers, Field of Ruin, depending on your meta and what you're playing against. But we just went with 8 islands, 8 swamps, and 4 of each of the fast black-blue lands. So the Dimir lands, Drowned Catacomb, and Watery Grave. If you don't have that, you could drop the Watery Grave or the Drowned Catacomb for any number of guild gates. Would work fine too. So just an option here. Now, as you can see, the whole point of this deck is working with the artifacts to build them up together and get a bunch of benefits from having a ton of artifacts on the field. This is a fun deck. It's probably not going to be super competitive. The decks I've played it against, it's done okay, but I haven't been playing it at Friday Night Magic or anything like that. It's all been very casual. So try it out. Let me know what you think. If you play it on Arena, let me know how it does. If you like the deck, give us a thumbs up down there. Subscribe, hit the little bell notification if you want to know when we're going to post new videos. And that's it for this time. I guess we'll see you next time. Deuces. Hey, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go down below and find that subscribe button. Press it and the notification bell so that you'll know when we post new videos. If you've got some feedback, follow that arrow to the comment section and let us know what you think. See you next time.